All right, hello Nevada County. I'm Keith Overby, and we're here today to talk to Alex Keeble Toll. Did I say that right?
You did.
I did. All right. Alex Keeble Toll, who is the director of the Nevada County Office of Emergency Services, and she's going to tell us everything about emergency service that you ever wanted to know, and even some stuff that you didn't know. And so, Alex, it's a pleasure having you here. Nice to have you here.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you for taking the time to come in and talk to us. I guess, first of all, could you give us an overview of what it is that the Nevada County Office of Emergency Services does? Now, I see vehicles running around the state of California Office of Emergency Services, but what is it that Nevada County's Office of Emergency Services does, or otherwise known as OES?
Sure. So Nevada County Office of Emergency Services is really charged with supporting community resilience for all hazards countywide. So people typically think of us in association with wildfire, but we also support community resilience in winter storms. When we have disease outbreaks like COVID, we play a role. And we're really leaning into not just that response function, but 4 pillars: planning and preparedness, mitigation, response, and recovery. So it's looking at all of those hazards and then what does wraparound services to support our community and being able to respond to and recover from those types of disasters.
Okay. And just curious, talk about funding. How is the Office of Emergency Services in Nevada County funded?
So we receive general fund from County of Nevada to support our staff, and then in addition we have substantial state and federal grant funding that is really funding the programs that we're delivering, not so much the people, but the actual on-the-ground work. So things like fuel mitigation projects, things like green waste, things like community preparedness campaigns. We pull down a number of different grant resources to leverage and extend those efforts. And then we rely on our staff to be the creative engine behind that, to be the ones that are out there in the community, identifying what those needs are, how we're going to creatively meet them, who we're going to collaborate with to deliver those programs and services to get that resource on the ground.
So you're kind of like the overall referee that keeps everything in line, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, really, we play the function of coordinating, meeting unmet needs. And whether,
Coordinator, that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, spider in the web. We're kind of looking at all the different technical experts and community resources and figuring out who does what and how do we best support them in their own missions, and then how do we fill gaps where there are gaps in delivery of education or on-the-ground programs or other services of benefit to our community.
Okay. Now, in addition, of course, we're here in fire season right now.
Yep.
But you're also in a season where we have a lot of people with outdoor activities. So and I'm just curious, is OES involved in search and rescue and that kind of thing, like river rescues, coordinate with the Sheriff's Department with search and rescue? How does that work also?
Yeah, so again, we are identifying those unmet needs. Search and rescue fulfills their search and rescue mission. Nevada County Consolidated, for instance, has been leading a lot of those river rescues and deploying those rope rescues, and we support them. For instance, we delivered some funds through Title III grant funds that allowed their team to train up and get some new skills. The Sheriff's Office they're leading those, incident-specific recovery missions, and we're supporting by things like leveraging and extending their messages on social media, ensuring that people understand the dangers of swimming in the river certain times of the year, making sure that we're out in the community and increasing awareness of the danger of, for instance, building campfires, what the regulations are if you want to have a charcoal stove places. We're really leveraging and extending many of those messages, but we're not responders. So it's not our mission to actually perform that response function. Our mission is to listen to our responders, to have those relationships, and to make sure that if they need to phone a friend and have us support an unmet need, we're there to do that.
All right. Now you mentioned that you are able to direct funding for example, to consolidate it for rescue cases, missions, whatever you want to call them. So do you work, is that part of your job too, is to met out or dole out the grant monies and the monies to the various law enforcement, first responder organizations here in the county?
Yes, so we do perform that function for specific types of funding. So for instance, for Nevada County Consolidated, we ran a Title III grant program. We also provided funds to Washington, the town of Washington, for them to do some all-terrain vehicle outreach. We provided funds to North San Juan to do some work with their fire district. So we're always looking for ways to push funds out to our community partners. We do administer Homeland Security Grant Program funds, which are specifically directed towards providing training and resources to our law and fire partners. And then in addition, when we have opportunities, we'll pull down grant funding, for instance, to deliver micro grants to Firewise communities so that Firewise communities can do roadside vegetation management and those types of activities. That's not, I would say, the vast majority of what we're doing on a daily basis, but it is a function to coordinate meeting those unmet needs by being able to deploy funding out to different entities across the county. Okay.
And well, let me ask you this, as long as we're on the subject of funding, and I think I might have asked this, and hopefully I'm not asking you again, the state of California is obviously in a hole right now. What do they say it is, 25 billion or something like that? And of course, there's the chance that they're going to lose more money. What kind of steps are you taking to try to ensure continuity of services in the event of that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So we're always looking at what our current funding portfolio is, how many different grants we have, what types of work they're funding. We think about our on-the-ground program delivery as being at the individual community and landscape scale. So I'm looking at which projects we have, what funding is being directed to which scale, and when those projects will be implemented, when they will be wrapped up, and then thinking about, okay, at what point in time do I need to get additional grants in the pipeline so that I can ensure continuity of services. And we're still trying to find our balance in terms of what an appropriate level of service we can deliver based on the size of our team. We're relatively small. It's a team of 11. It's a lot of work to administer these programs. But right now, we are fortunate in that none of our programs are currently impacted. We have secured funding for all the projects we're working on. And then in addition, we have a couple of opportunities that we're pursuing for state grant funding, specifically CAL FIRE funding and Sierra Nevada Conservancy funding, where we have projects that we have already dreamt up and that we've already figured out what they're going to look like, who the partners are going to be, and we're working with different entities countywide to determine which projects are the highest priority for all of us working in this space to put forward to these funders. It's always going to be a moving target. You never know when the requests for proposals are going to come out. I think what we do well is figure out what our priorities are in advance, and we've done that through several strategic planning efforts, through our 2024 evacuation study, through our 2025 local hazard mitigation plan update, and our 2025 community wildfire protection plan, where we did a lot of work engaging with partners and stakeholders and community members to figure out what are our priorities as a county so that we already have a sense when these funding opportunities come forward exactly what we need to go after funding for. So that positions us well to be opportunistic when opportunities do present. There are no guarantees.
And you're not just Western Nevada County, you're also Eastern,
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
Brothers and sisters up in Truckee.
Absolutely. So our service area is unique in that it extends over the Sierra Crest. And I will say it's really exciting to be designing projects both on the West Slope and in East County because it's very different environments, very different constituents in those places, different sets of partners. We're actually this week getting on the ground with a fuel mitigation project in partnership with Tahoe National Forest Truckee Ranger District that's going to do roadside management out and around Boca and Stampede. And the proof in the placement of these projects is, there were some small fires that started up in those very areas in the last few weeks. And so we know where we're placing these projects is where we should be placing them.
You go where the fires are, exactly.
Yeah, we go where the fires are, we go where, and the fires are, generally speaking, where people play, right?
Okay.
Where people are out and about, recreating, being in open spaces, even, being on private property and doing things like mowing their lawn and weed whacking. I mean, we see a lot of starts this time of the year that are associated with good people trying to do good work. And we go to those places that we've pre-identified with our partners and with our partners, CAL FIRE and our other local fire districts. And that's where we place the projects, because we know that's where the greatest likelihood of having an event ignite is.
Sure. Okay. Now, well, we're talking about fire. We're in the middle of fire season. So let me ask you first, what is OES's role in fire preparedness to get the community prepared for fire?
Sure. We play, I think, a tremendous role in that planning and preparedness space. So earlier this year, we did a countywide mailer. That's, where we send out a 2-page flyer countywide to every resident, basically hitting people with, like, if you do anything, do these things right now. And they are sign up for Code Red, know your zone, and understand what your evacuation options are and actually drive them to make sure that that's your option. We engage tremendously with our Firewise communities. We have actually a form that Firewise communities can fill out requesting specific resources. So whether they want evacuation tags or zone magnets or Ready, Set, Go handbooks, they can request those from us in the quantity they would like, and we'll package them up and they can come pick it up to take to their community meetings. We are out in the community this time of the year almost every single day. A staff member of OES is out at a community meeting or a forum or another stakeholder engagement. We're out at, Thursday night markets and summer nights in Nevada City, making sure that we're getting resources into the hands of individual community members, because our individual community members, our residents, are our greatest force multiplier for preparedness. If we think about it, there are so many more of us than there are of first responders. And if we can do our part and be ready to evacuate and evacuate early, we are doing our first responders such a tremendous service by getting out of the way so that they can get in and they can focus on fighting the fire. And they don't have to worry about whether people are still in their homes. They can really focus on what they do best.
Okay, which brings me to my next question. You're talking about getting people out of the way and letting the firefighters do their business. Evacuations. I mean, I'm always seeing stuff online. Everybody's talking about getting out of this county if a big calamity hits.
Sure.
God willing, there's not going to be, but you still have to be prepared for it.
You do.
And so how is OES involved in preparedness for evacuations? I imagine you had something to do with the evacuation zone map.
Sure.
But if you could explain all that to us, that would be really great.
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, I think it's important to understand that OES does not lead evacuations. Those are spearheaded by the sheriff's office. So we follow the sheriff's office lead around evacuations. We support in terms of if they need back-end support and alert and warning, if they need us to be activating zones so that when you go online to the Ready Nevada County dashboard, you can see that zones are under evacuation warnings or orders. We support by if they need us to send out a wireless emergency alert. So we can support in that back-end function. On the front end, we're really making sure people understand the importance of being ready to evacuate. For instance, if we're having a red flag warning day where we've got winds and we've got, low humidity and we've got, high temperatures and factors that might contribute to there being a greater likelihood of fire, we want people to have their cars facing out with full tanks of gas If they have garage doors, we want them to know how to open a garage door without electricity. Same for electric gates. We want you to have your go bag packed with everything you need, all your important medical records, your birth certificates, your marriage licenses, all of those things, cash, passports. And if you've got pets, we want you to be ready to get out with your pets. Have a plan, have your carriers and your kennels ready. Lock your pets inside. My cats, as soon as they see their carrier, they totally disappear because they think they're going to the vet. That's the only time they go in the carrier, right? And so understand what it takes for you to be ready. And then have 5 people, find your 5 and have 5 people, both in Nevada County and not in Nevada County, that are going to be your trusted allies if there's an event and you have to evacuate, so that you can call them, so that you have a place to stay, so that they can check on you. Mm-hmm. We know that, we live in a rural community where cell service can be spotty. It's really important for people to understand that they need to have multiple ways of getting information. So understand that you have your trusted local media sources, that you can go to Ubinet, that you can listen to the radio, to KNCO, to KVMR, and that you can phone a friend, that you can call one of those people and find your 5 and say, hey, can you access information? What's happening?
Well, it's kind of a interesting. Nevada County, while it is a rural area, I mean, let's face it, if you live down in Grass Valley, you're in an urban area. Sure. Even Nevada City, downtown is an urban area. Truckee, of course, is an urban area. So there's a mixture of both rural and urban preparedness that has to go into this.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a fair point, although I would say that even though, we have these urban areas like Nevada City and Grass Valley, mm-hmm. they are still in the wildland urban interface, which many other places we think about, Los Angeles, you've got an urban area and then you have the wildland urban interface, or the WUI being kind of more on the outskirts. Mm-hmm. 92% of our residents live in high or very high fire hazard severity zones. So even if you live in a more densely populated area, you're still up against many of the same challenges. I would say in terms of evacuation, the difference could be that in a densely populated area like Nevada City, you have a lot of people trying to get out a limited number of roads. But for other areas, you've got a lot of people trying to get out a one-way in, one-way out, which is why it's so important that people understand what their evacuation options are and mm-hmm. actually drive them. Know that that is an option for you and that road conditions haven't changed, or there's not additional vegetation or other things you hadn't anticipated. And now's the time. Before there's an emergency, drive it and know it.
Oh yeah, perfect example is what happened in Paradise.
Sure.
I mean, that was people discovered that where the road narrowed down and they'd made these nice little parklets to set in along downtown. All of a sudden was a traffic hazard for people. Evacuation. I know you said it's the sheriff's bailiwick, but are you involved in the planning of evacuation routes and whatnot with the sheriff's department, or what role do you play in that?
Sure. So we did do our 2025 evacuation study that was specifically looking at where are our most evacuation vulnerable communities mm-hmm. in Nevada County. But on the whole, what I will say is we're never going to tell you this is your evacuation route. People want to know, and that's a question we often get. What is my evacuation route? What is my evacuation plan? And the reality is we never know where a fire is going to start. We don't know if it's going to be a windy day. We don't have a ton of confidence in terms of how a fire will behave. I mean, our law and fire folks have a pretty good idea based on past experiences, and we can rely on modeling using the best mm-hmm. available science. But the bottom line is we really don't know. And so if we tell people, hey, you live here and this is your evacuation route, what if we're wrong? What if the fire has ignited someplace where that's no longer an option? Which is why it's really important for people to know all their options and to not predefine what their evacuation route is, to just know these are my options, and depending on where that fire is, and that kind of tees into situational awareness. We really encourage people to be situationally aware, right? So we try to train our community members to know their zone. because when you receive an evacuation alert or warning, it's going to be tied to a zone. So know your zone, but don't just know your zone. Know the zones around you, so that if a zone next to you is under an evacuation warning because the zone over from them is under an evacuation order, you can kind of gauge what your level of willingness to stick around is. And if you feel like you need more time, if you've got pets, if you've got folks who have mobility issues, leave early. Leave as soon as possible.
Well,
have that be your
better
plan.
better early than later.
Exactly.
I mean, we found that out from the Paradise experience.
Yeah, and
unfortunately.
and when we did our evacuation study and our community wildfire protection plan update, the number one thing people were concerned about was evacuation, and people are afraid of getting trapped on the road. And I would say the single greatest way to prevent getting trapped on the road is to leave early. Leave when there are less people on the road, and take fewer vehicles. The more vehicles there are on the road at any given time, the longer that evacuation scenario is going to take, and the more stressful it's going to get.
I see. Well, and we've talked about the preparedness. We've talked about evacuation, how you're going to get out of Dodge, so to speak.
Yeah.
The actual firefight that will occur. How do you coordinate with our local fire agencies in the firefight?
Sure. So we are going to be in that space of coordinating, meeting those unmet needs. I am really excited this year. We worked with City of Grass Valley and our law and fire personnel to bring online a new incident management software called Tablet Command. And we all have access to this. And I've been really excited about this software because it has a function called Automatic Vehicle Locators on it, or AVL. And it's a dashboard, and we can pull it up and we can see every emergency response that's happening, whether it's a medical response or a fire. And then you can actually see which resources are being deployed to that event and who is on those resources, so you kind of know what is happening for any given incident. But really, we pride ourselves on doing a ton of relationship building and partnership activities and work on the front end, so that if there's a fire, we know who we can get a hold of in our law and fire community to have kind of a sense of what's happening in that incident. And then we're waiting to hear from them. They're the experts. They're the incident commanders. They're the ones who are going to tell us what they need. They're going to say, hey, we're evacuating these 4 zones and it's going to be this many people. We need to set up a temporary evacuation point, or we need to set up a shelter. And then we do that because that's the unmet need. Their job is to get the people out and fight the fire, and we're going to coordinate that unmet need of making sure people have a place they can go to get information, to take a break, to get some water, that people have sheltering if they need it. We can coordinate unmet needs when we get calls from the community who say, hey, I have horses and I don't have a trailer. What am I going to do? And we can connect them with the Sheriff Hart team, who will support the rescue of animals. Those different pieces of coordinating those unmet needs. We can have law and fire tell us, hey, we've got people up on the San Juan Ridge, there's no cell service, they're without power, how are we going to get people information? And we'll go up there and we'll set up physical trap boards with incident information about evacuation points and shelters on those trap boards so that people can access information.
Terrific.
Yeah, so those are some of the things that we do in terms of coordinating unmet needs.
Do you coordinate mutual aid from other agencies from outside the
Yeah,
county?
so that is a function that comes down through OES, and we will immediately be coordinating with Cal OES, who will help us shepherd through that process.
Okay. Well, let's walk away from fire.
Sure.
I guess earth, wind, and fire, so to speak. But one of the things we have up here the last 3 years, 2 out of the last 3 years, we've had a lot of snow.
This is true.
And I know the first one that we had, 3 years ago, kind of caught everybody off guard. And I was wondering what kind of steps have been taken to increase preparedness and equipment and whatnot for another, as they call it, Snowmageddon. Can you tell me what part OES is playing in preparing for that?
Sure. And I mean, it's kind of amazing, right? We've done a great job training our community up for what it means to be ready for wildfire. And then it snows and we're caught totally off guard, and people don't have propane and they don't have enough firewood and they don't have snow shovels, and people on private roads haven't arranged for plows, and people are cold. And we learned a lot from those winter storms. And so one thing we've done is really leaning into that community education piece. So now, in addition to Ready, Set, Go for wildfire, we have a Ready, Set, Snow campaign.
All right.
So in the aftermath of the winter storms, we did a countywide mailer in November, kind of timed up with Thanksgiving, reminding people, hey, it snows here, and here's the steps you can take to be ready for snow. Instead of a go bag, you need a stay bag. What do you need in a bag that will help you if your power's out? Do you have propane? Do you have a Coleman stove? Do you have flashlight batteries? Do you have a supply of firewood? Those pieces. Have you thought about perishable food? Do you have a plan for having food that's non-perishable? If you live on a private road, do you have a list of telephone numbers for snowplow services that you can call? Or do you have a neighbor with a plow? Mm-hmm. So really making sure that people understand the pieces that are their personal responsibility. So, we had a lot of people frustrated that they were on private roads and they weren't plowed. If you're on a private road, just like managing vegetation is your responsibility, plowing your road is your responsibility. But people didn't know that. You tell people, and then they will do something with that information, and they will understand. So we've really been leaning into that aspect of it. The other thing we've done, and kudos goes to our Department of Public Works, which plow all of our county maintained roads, is they've set up what's called a DOC, a Department Operating Center, which is essentially a collaborative virtual platform for us to work together to identify, okay, where are roads being plowed? Where are we seeing down trees? Those types of things. And then working with folks like Nevada County Consolidated around having these task forces, where if you have a snowstorm, you can have a task force, and the task force can be multi-jurisdictional. It can be, someone with a plow and someone with the skill set to remove trees. And then we're going to coordinate with PG&E to make sure there's not down power lines. A lot of the pieces around responding to winter storms really, I think, come down to coordinating and triaging who needs to do what. Mm-hmm. We can't plow a road if there's down electrical infrastructure, but we can coordinate with PG&E to make sure that that infrastructure is being addressed so that then we can plow a road, right? PG&E can't get in if there's down trees to get into their infrastructure, right? So it's identifying, again, what are those unmet needs, and then how are we going to work together to triage and scale what happens first, where does it happen? And I think the preparedness and the learning curve has happened at all levels. I think our individual residents now better understand the role they need to play. And then on the county and agency end of things, we better understand and have a better roadmap for how we're going to work together to quickly deploy resources and meet those unmet needs.
Well, I think, again, we have Eastern County, Western County. In Truckee, if it starts snowing, everybody goes, yep, it's snowing.
Yep, sure.
If it starts snowing here, everybody's in a panic mode.
Yeah, And I think, when we have multiple mild winters and then we have, a tough winter with a lot of snow, I think it's a good reminder, too, how important it is to educate people who are new to Nevada County. Mm-hmm. I grew up here, so I'm like, yeah, it snows. I remember snows quite large when I was a kid, when my children were born. It's not tremendously surprising to me. I have a four-wheel drive vehicle. I have a chainsaw. I'm ready for the power to go out, those pieces. But when we have people who move to Nevada County and they experience several mild winters, you don't realize how much it can snow here.
Well, all the realtors tell people that move up here, you're above the fog, below the snow. Mm-hmm. No, not so much.
Yeah. Sometimes a lot of the time, and then sometimes very much not.
Right, yeah. Exactly. Is there anything else that I haven't asked you that you want to put out there to folks?
I mean, this time of the year, it really is about that personal responsibility piece about being ready for wildfire. Mm-hmm. And not unlike winter storms, when we've had mild fire seasons like we have the last several years, we've been really fortunate. And we can't get complacent. We have to be ready. And the single most important thing that we can do is be force multipliers and be ready ourselves. And it's a good reminder. I, about a month ago went into my garage and looked through my go bag and went, oh my gosh, this is a mess. I need to address this. I need to make sure what's in here are the important things and make sure that I've really got it dialed. And everyone needs to get it dialed. Make sure you've got enough carriers for your pets. Make sure you've got your go bag packed. Make sure you understand your evacuation routes. Make sure you're signed up for Code Red and that you know your zone. And if you've done all those things, then help a neighbor. Help someone who's new to Nevada County. Help someone who's less resourced than you. Help someone who's busy because they've got really little kids and they're doing everything they can to, stay above water with toddler management. Make sure that you're being a good neighbor and a good community member as well.
If I can, I'm sorry, I want to go back. I know there's several apps out there. There's like Watch Duty, some of those. Are there any other ones that you can mention that people should look for that will report? I mean, Watch Duty, little alarm goes off on my phone if there's a fire in the area.
Yeah, so there's a number of great resources. First and foremost, we always tell people to refer to your trusted media sources. So Nevada County OES Facebook, the county main page Facebook, the sheriff's office Facebook, because that's going to be your most trusted source of information. But in addition to that, to maintain situational awareness, Watch Duty is an app. Flight Radar, you can actually go on there and you can see which planes are flying where. And I usually kind of follow like a triage of events in OES. We get pages from CAL FIRE, and then I always check Ubinet or social media to see whether that's hit the community awareness level. We always look at Watch Duty and at Flight Radar to see kind of what's happening. And the bottom line is, when we talk about communications and which communications are available to get information, have lots. Consult lots of sources, because inevitably one of them will fail you. And if we have a web of resources we're consulting, we're going to get the information we need.
Ubinet is very helpful. I mean, they've been on top of it. Pascal's been on top of it for years.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
And so, okay, anything else that you want to add?
No, be ready, Nevada County.
All right. Have you heard her? Be ready, Nevada County. And I want to thank you all for listening tonight. This is Nevada County Media. If you should be interested in participating with us, being a host, doing some writing, working with the audio equipment, feel free to give us a holler at nevadacountymedia.org. I'm sure we can find something for you to do. And folks, I'm going to let you go now. Thank you for your time, and get out there and enjoy all this wonderful community has to offer. Good night now.